So as we said, this is a very important Shabbat. And of course, there are many secrets, but we try to focus on certainly those that the Creator tells us we should focus on this week, but also those that are fundamental to our spiritual work and fundamental to our lives. There's the story in this week's portion of the battle between what is called Yaakov and Esau, Jacob and Esau, but really it's a battle between light and darkness. And if you know the story, there is a pivotal moment when Yaakov, Jacob, who is basically getting prepared for battle with his brother Esau, who wants to kill him and his family and steal all that he has, they travel over, Yaakov and his family, and they're a very large group at this point, across the river. And then Yaakov, it says, remembers that he forgot something on the other side of the river. And by himself, alone, he travels across back to the other side of the river. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Literally translated means Yaakov was left alone on that side of the river. And that is where he has a battle with what is called the ministering angel, the angel of Esau, the angel that represents the source of all negativity and darkness and death in this world. So this is the Shabbat of a great battle, but also a great success. And where we want to focus and understand is what did Yaakov save? What did Yaakov reveal for us on this Shabbat? So the Midrash says something very interesting, that the word, when it says Vayivater Yaakov levado, that Jacob was left alone, it can be read in the ancient Hebrew letters. The letter for Bet and the letter for Chaf are very similar. So although it says levado, which means on his own, it could also be read as lekado, for his vial of oil. What is this vial of oil? We've spoken about this in previous years, but hopefully this year we will come into a deeper understanding. What was this vial of oil that Jacob forgot and went back to the other side of the river to battle with the angel? And what was the battle? To regain control of that vial of oil. So the Midrash tells us that in last week's portion, for those of us who remember, Yaakov has a dream, and in the dream, the light of the Creator is revealed to him. He wakes up in the morning, and he brings an offering to the Creator. But it says, She'Yaakov sam ha'avanim merashotav. Jacob, when he went to sleep in last week's portion, before he had that revelatory dream, he put 12 stones around his head. And when he woke up, it says, Vayishkim baboker umetza'an even achat, and he found that they had joined miraculously to be one stone. V'nitbatzer lo kad shel shemen, and he found miraculously a vial of oil. And therefore, when he woke up, as he brought the offering, he poured oil on top of that one stone. It is the first time in the Torah that we find, and Jacob is the first person who brings oil as an offering. What is the secret of that vial that Jacob found miraculously in last week's portion? He forgot it, it seems, on the one side of the river in this week's portion, and he goes back to get it. What made it miraculous? Because it is the same vial that was used, for those of us who know, to be when the Mishkan was prepared and Aaron and his family were made the priests, the Kohanim. There was oil that was used to pour on them and on all the new utensils and the new tabernacle. And that is what consecrated it. That is what elevated it spiritually. And the Kabbalah teaches the same vial of oil that keeps replenishing itself. Not coincidental, we're going into the week of Chanukah. It is the same miracle. What is the miracle of the oil of Chanukah? Is that it never stops replenishing itself. And again, we can go very deeply into this, but there's two prophets, Eliyahu Navi and Elijah and Elisha, who used the miracle of the replenishing oil to save those who were connected to them and save those when they were going through a difficult time. So what we're talking about here is sustenance, physical and spiritual sustenance. Why do we call it limitless? Is because no matter how much you use, no matter how much of that oil you use, there's always a replenishment. Most of us in life, we're looking for something. We're trying to achieve something. And we have to understand that it's both possible, but really this is the goal of our lives, to find the blessings, not just the ones that can sustain me in the moment or even in this time, but really the blessings that we're meant to be going after are the ones that are constantly replenishing, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, whether it's our spiritual work. Why is it that even in the spiritual path, there's so many people who begin the path and then stop? Because they connected to the momentary, the limited blessing, even in the spiritual path. Who are those that continue all the time? As it says, V'kovei Hashem yachalifu koach, who are always being replenished with inspiration and excitement and connection. Those who have found the way to connect to this, what's called the secret of this oil, which means any blessing that keeps on replenishing over and over and over and over again. As it says, as Eliyahu Navi, as Elijah the prophet said to the woman who needed, he said, "V'kad Hashemen lo techsar," that there will never be a lack. So now we're beginning to understand that what is available with the secret of this Shabbat, what is it about? It's about how do we battle to connect not just to blessings. A lot of people have blessings, good blessings. Again, relationships, work, a lot of success, abundance. A lot of people have that. What most people don't have is a connection to blessings that come from this place of the replenishing oil. That not only it never runs out, but it's constantly being replenished. This was the battle of Yaakov and Esau, of Jacob and the ministering angel of Esau in this week's portion. The angel, and as Esau says to him, he says, "Listen, I have so much, let me give you. Yesh li rav, I have so much." That Yaakov says, "I have everything I need," but Esau says, "I have so much, I have endless amounts, let me give you." Most people are happy, right? In life, how many times, I'm going after this, or I'm happy to have that. Not knowing that really what the individual is connecting to, even if it's a blessing of Esau. It's the one that will end. Will end after a day, after a week, after a month, after a year, after 20 years, it doesn't matter. The battle of this Shabbat is, how do I make sure that the blessings that I receive are the ones that are connected to this limitless replenishing source that is referred to as the oil of Jacob, the oil of Elijah, the oil of Elisha, the oil of the temple during the time of Chanukah. This is the foundational secret, not only of this Shabbat, but of Chanukah. Not to be fooled by blessings that can come from Esau. And how do you know that they're coming from Esau? Not because they don't feel good in the moment, or even in the week, or in the month, or in the year. It's that at some point they end, they stop replenishing. The blessings that we desire to receive, to connect to, especially on this Shabbat and Chanukah, are those that replenish all the time. That when you get it, by the way, it's as an aside, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more. Whenever, one of the beauties, those of us who are truly connected to the light of the Zohar, those of us who are connected to the wisdom of Kabbalah, to the path of the Centre, to Vayishlach, to the Ari, is that you keep tasting more. It keeps replenishing. No matter how many times, and I can tell you this from personal experience, over 40 years or so of studying this wisdom, how do you know that you're connecting to the true wisdom? Is because 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, it's more. It's more inspiring, it's more revealing. So that's what this Shabbat is about. And that's what Chanukah is about. To connect to the right blessings. Again, we see many people who have, as Esau has, a lot. But if it's not connected to the replenishing oil, as it's referred to, then it will end. At some point, it will end. So that's the battle. How do you achieve that? And this is a very important secret. I want all of us, hopefully, to remember it. More important than remember it, act upon it. What can we do? What can we do to make sure that the blessings that we are connecting to are connected to the replenishing oil? Whether it's pursuit that we have in the physical, in work, in abundance, in the physical level, whether it's on looking for a relationship, again, right? We know what do we know about relationships? Most of them are not connected to the replenishing oil. How do we know? Because most of them end. That's the indication. And even spiritual connection. Too often it ends for people. Why does it end? Because they are not connecting to the replenishing oil of that blessing. How do you do that? How do you do that? So the great Kabbalist, the Bet Yaakov, in this week's portion, says the following. Shemazhira kadosh baruch hu otanu. The Creator, the light of the Creator warns us. Shenate bekoach et kol klei kabbalatenu. That we all have what we call a vessel, a desire. But the Creator tells us you have to focus your desire. You have to forcefully bend it in a certain direction in order for it to be connected to the replenishing oil. Ulechu elai, and bring it to the consciousness of the Creator. How do you do that? Le'omek kavanat divrei Torah, by understanding, or at least endeavoring to understand, the deeper secrets of the universe, which are revealed through the light of the Torah, and of course through the wisdom of Kabbalah and the Zohar and the 10 luminous emanations. Ki b'divrei Torah nimtza kol minei rechush sheba'olam. All the blessings that you want, again, all the blessings that are of Jacob, the replenishing oil blessings, the blessings of Esau, you can find everywhere. You can find them everywhere. But the blessings of the replenishing oil, that is the blessing of Yaakov, is the blessing of this Shabbat, is the blessing of Chanukah, the only way to receive them is if your consciousness is being attached to the Creator's consciousness. And what is the Creator's consciousness? The secrets of Kabbalah, the wisdom of Kabbalah.